Hey, Shane.
He died.
You're not. She's not. You're not.
Yeah.
What? What's happening?
There's only me now.
Have you seen Dr. Sleep?
Yeah, I have.
Well. Shane could not be here this week, so Breck was kind enough to step in, and we were gonna do The Conjuring, but I really want to show Shane that movie. So, and Breck has already seen it.
And he's not gonna watch it if he will not watch it if we don't show it to him on this podcast. I'm telling you right now.
Shane will watch it.
He
will watch it.
He would. Now that we've gotten him hooked on the James Wan horror movies.
Well, yeah, you gotta love the James Wan horror movies.
Check out the Malignant episode last week if you haven't already.
Branding specialist. So yeah, we decided to pivot, and I had seen the director's cut, which that's what we're specifically talking about, the director's cut of Dr. Sleep, a movie that is, like we said, very divisive, and you had not seen the director's cut.
No, I hadn't.
You had only seen it in theaters, right? You hadn't rewatched it at all.
So I get to do this now. My history with this movie is that I saw it way back when it came out in 2019.
Yeah.
We'll say 2019.
It was 2019. Yeah.
And I saw that at the Denton, Texas Cinemark. Shout out.
It's not there. That one's there.
That one's
AMC's
still there.
not there.
My beautiful, beautiful AMC. R.I.P. But yeah, and I remember thinking it was fine. I remember kind of being confused that people either thought it was the worst movie they'd ever seen in their entire life, or people who were like, 4.5, 5 stars. I was like, guys, I don't know if I feel 4.5, 5 stars, but I certainly don't feel like this is worth 2 stars either.
Yeah.
This feels like a very solid. The theatrical I felt was a pretty solid 3.5, but the director's cut for me has been a solid like 4. Like I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the expansion.
Yeah, it's because it's a pretty different cut. They add a framing to my understanding. It's been a long time since I've seen the theatrical.
Oh yeah, there were still things where I was like, I couldn't even tell you if this was director's cut or not because it's been so long since.
Well, and a lot of it is they just let it breathe more. They add the like chapters framing
which
device.
I loved.
It makes it feel like this big sprawling movie in a way that I really like. I love a long movie. I mean, The Shining is that way. The Shining is this like long haul of a movie. Now, it's like 2.5 hours, but this is a 3-hour movie.
I just realized The Shining also has like Tuesday as like one of the just occurred to me.
So I think the place to start, there's a couple sections to this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
There is, what are your feelings on Stephen King? Mm-hmm. What are your feelings on Mike Flanagan? What are your feelings on The Shining? And then we can talk about this weird like sequel reboot type of deal thing that it is.
Wouldn't I just love to talk about my feelings on Stephen King? What's up? Huge Stephen King fan here. Steve, come on the pod.
I would love that.
Steve,
Stephen King
I'm going to hit
awesome.
him up on Twitter and be like, hey, me, you don't know me. I just read It. You've ever heard of that? And he's like, no, I was on coke.
He doesn't remember writing a lot of it.
There's a lot of it he doesn't remember writing. He doesn't remember at all writing Cujo.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Oh yeah, someone was like, yeah, how was that? And he's like, I'm going to be honest with you guys, on a coke bender, have no memory of writing Cujo whatsoever.
That's funny. Hey, make money.
Pretty much. That was also when I learned this, he was writing so many books at that time because of said substance abuse problems that either his agent or his publicist was like, we have to get you a pen name because we're going to flood the market with Stephen King novels and no one will buy them at the rate that you're writing them. Yeah. Which is so fun. But I love Stephen King. I've had a pretty long-standing relationship with Stephen King, I would guess, if I can say that. I don't exactly remember the exact year I read Carrie, but that was the first Stephen King I ever read, which is kind of fun because it's also his first book, which I also love I will always tell people to read Carrie because it's an epistolary novel, which people are not expecting. It's not entirely. I flipped through it recently. I was like, oh, there's like less of that than I expect. But he does that very similar like historical framing, like I'm inserting newspaper articles in here and whatnot, which is a very common theme in his work that I've read so far. I hope it continues because it's one of my favorite parts of it is all the historical stuff. But yeah, I read Carrie when I was a young teenage girl, which is like the perfect time. Like people are like, oh, it's too scary. I'm like, no, this is how every 15-year-old girl like reads or sees Carrie and is like, I understand her. She's me. But yeah, I don't think I really started getting into, like, I think I watched The Shining in high school, and I remember being like, that was good. Was not particularly like, wow, this is the best movie I've ever seen in my entire life. And then in 2019, that summer, probably because Dr. Sleep was coming out that fall, the Alamo in Denton showed The Shining, and I watched it, and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Which is so fun. Like, that's a really fun thing that I think art house theaters do, of showing old movies, and you get to experience things, and you're like, oh, so this is why everyone in 1980 like lost their complete mind over The Shining, and you can't get that, I don't think, watching it just on like
the Shining,
a small TV in your house when you're like half paying attention. I
saw The Shining in theaters for the first time. I've seen it like 3 times in theaters now, which is wild because it's like not one of my favorite movies. I love it. I love The Shining, but I saw it in theaters the first time with not a double feature, but a back-to-back nights where I went and saw The Shawshank Redemption one night, and then
Stephen King night.
Yeah,
Stephen King
back-to-back nights. It was not the same night, but I saw it in theaters, and it's actually scary in theaters. Like at home, The Shining is not scary. It's just a really good movie, and then you watch it in a theater, and you're like, you're so encompassed by it.
It is overwhelming in a movie theater.
Yeah.
Like I remember
the soundscape just like haunts you.
100%.
Like honestly, like to the point that it's almost physical, where it's like, it's just so loud and your body's vibrating at that frequency that you're like, ugh.
Like I distinctly remember, I think it was either, I really want to say it's maybe the time that Danny sees the sisters. They're not twins. Listen to me right now. They're not twins. They're played by sisters who are
They're not twins.
They're not twins. Everyone calls them the twins. They're not twins. They're sisters.
The Shining twins. Anyway, continue.
You're so funny.
Continue what you're saying.
So funny.
No, the Shining twins.
But
we forgot to say, this is Breck. She's been on the podcast. But this is
I've been
girlfriend.
on the podcast. Hi, it's me. I've been on watched the Boogie Nights episode, and Meg and I did.
Yeah, they did.
Shane's wife did a very interesting double feature of The Hurt Locker and Jennifer's Body in March for Women's History Month.
Fantastic.
Go check that out.
Fantastic.
But yeah, no, that shot where they're like, come play with us, Danny. And then he's covering his eyes and like it flashes them like dead and all the blood everywhere. I was like, oh my God, this movie is so scary. Like it really affected me more than I thought it would.
But Stephen King, so you have read it, you've read Carrie.
I've read it, I've read Carrie, and I've read The Shining.
That's it?
That's it. I don't think I've read any of the other ones. I really want to read Dr. Sleep. And by the time we decided we were doing this, I was like, well, I can't finish Dr. Sleep in 2 days, which is really unfortunate.
See, yours is better than mine, though, because I've read the most random.
Yes.
I've read it, which I think is a standard one. Although I do think if you finish that book cover to cover, you're part of a very fun and cool club.
It's a very exclusive club.
It's not even exclusive. It's one of the most popular books ever. But like
it feels exclusive.
It feels exclusive, I guess. Like
the people in your life are like, what are you doing?
Well, it's a workout to read that book. Like it's literally like 3 or 4 pounds, and it's crazy. It's about as long as the Bible. Like
which I work at a coffee shop, and one of my employees like walked by me reading it, and he was like, oh my God, I thought you were reading the Bible. And I was like, no dog, this is my copy of it.
It is a crazy long book. It's insane.
It's probably one of my favorite books ever now.
It's a great book. I loved it. I loved reading it. I really want to do an It episode of the podcast. But I've read that, and then in this order I have read Holly, which is the first full novel starring Holly Gibney
from The Outsider.
From The Outsider and other things that she's popped up in. And then I am almost finished with If It Bleeds, which is a short story collection containing another story, the previous story of Holly and company. I don't know why that's what I did. I know why it's what I did. I was reading it, and a coworker of mine was reading Holly, and she was like, hey, you should read this. It's pretty good. You don't have to read the other ones, and gave it to me. And I read it, and it's fascinating because I really like Holly. I'm excited. He just announced that he's doing another Holly book, which is cool. So I'm probably going to try to read or watch the Outsider series. But anyway, I think the other little Stephen King things. 2 more things I want to talk about Stephen King. Stephen King. What makes Stephen King one of the most prolific American writers, at least prolific genre American writers? Because there's debate about that, I know, amongst people of like, is he the most prolific American writer? I think in terms of like household name, everybody knows who he is. Kind of the Steven Spielberg of that. It's like you say Stephen King and everyone can name at least 1 or 2 of his books.
Yes.
Like everybody can. What makes him such a unique writer? Because I have a few things that I think about a lot.
I think What I loved the most about all of the Stephen King novels I've read, and Carrie was forever ago, but I read The Shining and It pretty close to each other in terms of like behemoth book that you log around. They're so lived in. There's not a character that doesn't have a quirk in any given Stephen King novel. Even like random aside characters that you visit for 10 pages and then never see again, which it seems like a lot of pages, but not in a Stephen King novel. That's 1%. There's a purpose for every character, even if it's the most minuscule, like they just needed to cross the street at one time, like they're important. And I think also there's just something very quaint isn't the word I'm looking for. He just feels like he understands people on a fundamental level that I don't think all authors do. And it's very rare to me in all of the books that I've read where a character feels like someone I know, in the sense of like, I want to get a beer with this person. And also like, I would trust them to watch my children. And also I would be like, I don't know, like the ending of it made me tear up just because I was like, I don't want to say goodbye to my friends.
Yeah.
I was like, but they're my friend. I love them. But what about Bill? I miss him.
Well, you
like,
spend 1,000 pages with them. It's kind of hard to not be attached.
And also, Stephen just also tends to, I started talking about him like we're friends, like my bud Stephen. I just like I like the themes that he likes to tackle.
Yeah.
I think all of his themes about the cycles of abuse, the cycles of substance abuse, like I just find everything he likes to talk about very interesting. And I think also he understands horror on the level that all horror is about love, and it's about the power that love has, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, well, that was what I was going to say, is the thing that makes him so interesting to me is that he anyone who says horror is just like schlock and just what, this like,
I hate those people.
Yeah, they're dumb and stupid. This like meaningless schlock of terrible things that happen and only crazy people and weirdos like it. It's like, no, man, it's the same thing. It's like, horror in Stephen King's horror specifically is the core principle of storytelling. It's like opposition, good versus evil. That's what it is. It is love in the face of evil. It's love in the face of horror. That's what makes it so good. It's like, I always described Bill versus the adaptations, the movie adaptations versus the book, is like, in the book, Bill felt like a folk hero.
Yes, 100%.
He felt kind of like a legend. And that book is so just about the power of young belief.
Yes.
It's one of those things where it's like, man, a lot of horror writers don't do that. Not to that degree. Their worlds don't feel so like reading a Stephen King book is kind of like opening Pandora's box, where in like every crevice and cavity you can kind of follow something different and new and unique. And the other thing I think is he never feels like he's wrangling his characters. Ever.
100%.
They all feel like they're making natural decisions that progress to the next thing, that lead to the next thing. He doesn't feel like he went, I need them to fight Pennywise. It felt like he found the group of people who would fight Pennywise, and they happen to all know each other.
And they don't meet up until 700 pages
They
into
don't
the book.
all get together until 700. That's the thing I told everyone. They're like, how are you liking it so far? And I was like, they haven't all been together.
The kids haven't even
500?
all hung out yet.
Yeah, like but they all, in different pairs, in different groups, you spend time with all of them, and then around page 700 something, they all finally get together for the first time. But that moment feels amazing. It feels so interesting.
Like the culmination. Wow, we're talking a lot about it on this Dr. Sleep podcast.
Well,
But and you mentioned this when we watched the new Salem's Lot remake on HBO, which I think we both liked. I don't think either of us thought it was the best movie ever.
I have not thought about it basically at all. Like, the things I think about are not the movie being super interesting. It's Stephen King's.
Yeah, it's me sitting around like, man,
the
Stephen.
movie theater or the drive-in theater with everyone parked in the cars as their coffins is such a uniquely Stephen King
100%
image and idea. It's like, those are the things I think about, which I really want to rewatch, or not rewatch. I really want to watch the old Salem's Lot, which we have on Blu-ray.
Of Mr. Toby Hooper. But you said, you were like, I just love the reverence that Stephen King has for children. And I do too, because it speaks to, and a lot of the things that like kids grow up on, at least kids when we were kids, I don't know how much they, actually speak to kids like they're people anymore in current TV shows, but we grew up on stuff like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, we grew up on stuff where kids were talked to and they were like, we know you're smart. We understand that you have these rich inner lives that maybe the adults in your life aren't comprehending.
Yeah.
Because I think by the time you're an adult, you forget that kids have such a life like that. And Stephen King never once forgets that, and never forgets that in a single book that he's written that I've read.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then last little bit on Stephen King before we jump into Flanagan. What are your feelings on his adaptations? What's the best Okay, let me ask you, what's your favorite Stephen King adaptation, and what is the best adaptation of the book?
That is a very
because
good question.
The Shining is a bad adaptation, but it's a great movie. You know what I mean?
Yes. Which poor Flanagan has to really straddle that line, which we'll talk about.
Which is a fascinating thing.
But I think, in terms of something that truly condenses the Stephen King essence into a film, I would have to say It 2017.
Oh, see, the thing, it
I would kind of have to say that
is maybe my. I'm the kind of freak that's my comfort movie.
Oh yeah,
I watch that movie when I'm sad.
Spencer and I are both freaks because I'm also like I'm like I need to put on something I like. It's time to turn on The Shining.
It's a rainy day. It's time to throw on It 2017.
Like, I love It 2017.
Great movie. Chapter 2 is rocky, but there's still stuff.
There's still
like.
really fun stuff in it, but I think probably It 2017 is the best true to form Stephen King adaptation that I've seen. Yeah. There's about 20,000 that I haven't.
It really captures the essence while changing the entire time period it takes place in, but in a great way, in a way that really fundamentally works.
And I think my favorite is either going to be It 2017 or Brian De Palma's Carrie.
Brian De Palma's Carrie is a fucking fantastic movie.
I think about that movie once a week, and
it's great.
And I haven't watched it in years, and I'm still always walking around like, man, when she kills all those people at prom.
It's one of the best shots of all time is when it like the crazy panning shot leading up to the wire, up to the it's so good.
So we almost did Carrie for this episode because Flanagan got announced. We've
been in a Stephen King mood, kind of. We've been watching adaptations. We've both been reading Stephen King. We've both been like.
He's like a friend to me now.
He's like a brother to me.
But speaking of Flanagan, segue. They just announced that he's doing a Carrie adaptation. Is it going to be a show or a movie?
It's a show. How do you feel about it being a series?
I really like that.
Interesting.
I would hate for it to be super long, which I think I would never say. I think this should be a 4-episode thing.
It's gonna be no less than 8. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Man.
And I'm I'm thinking of the movie having not read the book, so I don't know what you could expand on. But the movie
there's
is
a lot.
The movie is something that culminates to one thing. It doesn't work as I don't know.
Well, and so in the book,
Flanagan, I have full faith in, but
in the book, she doesn't just destroy the high school. Carrie destroys the entire town.
Yeah, I knew that.
The entire town is destroyed, and Sue Snell is the truly literal only surviving person from that town. And that's why you should always be nice to people.
This has been your warning.
But there's a lot. Again, there's all that history. There's a lot of because some of the novels almost framed like a journalist trying to go around and get the story of like what the hell happened in this town. And so they're kind of tracing back, and there's people talking about, they're like, oh yeah, creepy Carrie. I used to live next, before I moved away, because she would always like spy on me tanning in my backyard.
Yeah.
And then there's a really sad story about poor little Carrie, like a little girl Carrie, who should know this already, asking a girl like what's on her chest.
Yeah.
And she's like, they're my breasts. Like, what do you mean? She's like, what does that mean? Like, because she's raised by her terrible mother. There's a lot of backstory on like what happened with her mom and why her mom is the way she is.
Are you going to do that for the series? I don't know.
The other thing that I see people talking about is like who they will cast as Carrie, which I think is in a lot of contention right now. We won't go into it, but
Jeanette McCurdy.
Man.
Hey,
I see a lot of people saying Hunter Schafer. I'm of the opinion, because this is in the book and it's never happened in any of the movies, that Carrie is plus size in the book, and that's why they specifically choose pig's blood, because she gets called a pig and big all the time. So I would love to see a plus size actress in that role.
Well, there you go. Do it.
Anyways,
but Flanagan.
Yeah, go into Flanagan. Tell us about your Flanagan.
Oh, I think he is not only one of the most brilliant filmmakers of the modern era. He is kind of the like new, in every way that James Wan is the like popcorn horror king. Flanagan is the like emotional destruction, emotional terrorism king. That man will make you cry in ways and in times you did not expect. People are in a boat saying 3 words, literally 3 words, and you start crying.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm having war flashbacks right now about
Midnight Mass. Is it's just upfront. Midnight Mass is one of my favorite things of all time.
I did my best.
I thanks for saying it. I appreciate you. That's great. Anyway, podcast.
We have to
over.
cry. Sorry.
5 minutes later, and we're back. Midnight Mass is one of the like great things, and then I also think I am of the very few and small group that thinks Bly Manor is better than Hill House. I like Bly Manor more. It's like a gothic romance, and it's amazing. It has gay people in it.
Lesbians.
It has lesbians in
Don't
it,
worry,
which is
I knew
fantastic. So that's where I'm at with him. But I also love Hush. I like his shows more than his movies, I think. But I love Hush. Like, Hush is such a fantastic movie and was off streaming forever. And is coming to physical media. I'll have that in November when it releases.
Don't worry. He pre-ordered that.
Oh, I already have it. Yeah, I got the nice fancy edition. I couldn't help it.
We haven't even watched it. They finally added it to Shudder, and we still are like,
I want to watch
we want to watch the fancy version.
I want to watch the Shush cut
We
when it comes
support
out in black
physical
and white.
media.
Yeah, so I think he is he's kind of becoming the Stephen King guy because the Carrie thing will be like his third Stephen King adaptation.
Which I'm all for.
Look, I think he's the great guy to do it. He's also doing the new Exorcist movie, and
which he said will be his scariest film yet.
Yeah, well, that's what he said. He's aiming for is the idea.
So,
but I think he's brilliant, and I think him making Doctor Sleep makes all the sense in the world. Like I
100%.
understand why his pitch is the one that went. And there's really some pretty good. Just look up any podcast where he's. I'll remember the podcast later. There's a podcast where he talks for like an hour and a half, hour 50 minutes, something like that, about him pitching Dr. Sleep and him getting Dr. Sleep. And it's really fascinating the way he went about it.
He also has his own podcast.
He also has his own podcast that I'm beefing with a little bit. Stuff got locked behind a paywall after like 2 episodes, and I was like, okay.
I was over on the bench.
Anyway, so I think he's just absolutely brilliant, and any director that has that devoted of a cast and crew is okay in my book.
A lot of women that follow him around speaks volumes to me. Very David Lynch of like clearly speaks to his character.
It's because he writes women really well.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what
good.
I mean?
Wow, it's crazy how when you write women that are people and you give women meaty roles to act with, they like want to work with you. That's crazy.
It's how Megan always puts it. She always says. She's like, when you write women, sometimes things have to be their fault for them to be actually good characters.
Yes.
And he does that so well, where it's like, he's like, they're in the right just as much as they're in the wrong.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
100%.
And he just has this empathy for every character he writes, except Bev Keane, which is he's like, I fucking tried. I couldn't come to care for her.
Yeah.
One of the best villains of all time.
Oh yeah.
At least one of the most hated villains of all time.
Her getting shot in the chest is like one of the best parts of Midnight Mass because you're like, yes, do it again.
Finally. But yeah, so I am just in awe of him. He's one of those directors where every couple of months to once a year, I go down a little rabbit hole where I rewatch a bunch of his stuff because I've seen most everything he's made.
Yeah.
And I love Flanagan. I think he's brilliant, and I love how he directs a movie. It's so specific while also not being so like idiosyncratic that it becomes parody. I don't know. He's really good. And one of the best writers out there. You should, if you ever get a chance, read some of his scripts. They're great reads. I read the last episode of Midnight Mass. I like printed it out and have been taking notes on it and stuff. Very good. Anyway, your relationship with him.
I have seen significantly less Flanagan than you. I watched Hill House when it came out because I heard everyone talking about it, which it is a loose adaptation of a Shirley Jackson novel, which I keep meaning to read, but I'm told it's not. It's different in a lot of ways, and as far as I can tell, I probably will still like Flanagan's thing more. I remember it being a huge moment when it came out. I remember exactly like where I was when I watched the Bent Neck Lady episode.
One of the scariest things I've ever seen.
Like genuinely, like, again, like speaking about like Stephen King understands horror is love. Flanagan also understands that horror is tragedy. Like there's an inherent kind of what's going to happen. And
I don't think, look, we'll talk about this when we get to Dark Sleep, but I think Stephen King realizes life has sacrifices.
Yes.
Life is unfair, but that doesn't make it not beautiful. Like,
yes.
right, it's the famous line, which is, I believe, from the book, which is a ghost is most often a wish.
Yes.
Is very often a wish. Like, however this specific line goes, but it's like that to me encompasses everything he's ever made.
Yes.
Like, it's the horror is so often Midnight Mass. The spoiler alert, please, if you haven't watched that,
turn this off. Go watch all of Midnight Mass,
and then come back, and then it's Father Paul is doing this all in the pursuit of the right thing that he believes. It's that's what Flanagan does better than anyone. It's just empathy oozes out of every line.
100%.
It's brilliant.
But yeah, so I've seen Hill House. I have not seen Bly Manor. Really just failing my fellow members of the LGBTQ community there.
Come on, baby.
I know. I guess it's that. Dr. Sleep. Oh, start naming some other Flanagans, please.
You and I watched The Fall of the House of Usher.
The Fall of the House of Usher. Yes. Oh my God. I can't believe we haven't even talked about that yet. That was
really
phenomenal.
Good. That's a really fun. It's so different than everything it's meaner than everything he's ever made.
Oh, it's so mean. It's so much fun. He is so much fun.
And yet he
tearing
still
those
finds
people
a way
down,
to make
and
it
you
this
still
really
are like,
empathetic
oh,
thing.
that's really sad for you.
Good shit.
I was like, I'm missing something. But yeah, Midnight Mass, Fall of the House of Usher, Hill House, Dr. Sleep. So I've seen
You haven't seen like
most of his
Before I
shows,
Wake,
and I
or
have not seen hardly
Oculus,
any of his movies.
Ouija, Origin of Evil.
No Ouija, Origin of Evil, no Oculus, no Hush.
No Absentia.
No
one's seen Absentia. It's fine.
No. But yeah, so I have significantly a smaller relationship with Flanagan than you, but I like him. Everything I see of his, I think people like to hate him, which I think is a little strange.
I couldn't disagree more. I'd never see people be mean to
Flanny.
Flanny.
I see the Tumblerinas. They are not a big fan of Mike Flanagan.
You're in what? The world is small. Every one of those pockets we talk about where they're mad, it's small. Twitter's small.
I know. You think about it, and then you go out in the world and people are like, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. The truth is not enough people know who Mike Flanagan is.
Which is so sad.
If people would embrace
but
their freakier side and watch spooky stuff, they may find a little
I'm
beauty.
Saying. But like even on like, not to sit here and talk about ratings and Dr. Sleep and Letterboxd and whatnot, but like
it's like 3.4 on Letterboxd.
But there's a lot of people who are like, this movie has too much Mike Flanagan moroseness. I'm like,
what is that supposed to mean?
Exactly. I'm like, they're like, it's too like Mike Flanagan being sad and making people talk at the camera for 5 minutes. And I'm like,
oh my
okay,
God, people,
and
guys, sometimes monologues are okay, and maybe you just need to sit with yourself because he also does so much visually in this movie without having to say a word. It's kind of in all of his work. He is a way better visual storyteller than people give him credit for.
Anyone is giving him credit for. Like literally, again, going back to the Carrie News, I saw people like, who's ready for the I saw 2 separate tweets that was like, who's ready for the ghosts of the people she killed to monologue to the camera? And someone was like, who's ready for her to monologue to the camera? And I'm like, I'm sat for Carrie to monologue.
It's like I'm in.
I'm sitting down for that.
You're playing a game here, and I'm super on board with it.
I'm like, okay. Yeah, I'll watch 8 episodes of that.
Where we go
Thanks.
and Where We Go When We Die is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Both of them.
Yeah, okay.
Or What Happens When We Die is one of the best monologues of all time. And if you don't get deeply emotional during that, you're a crazy person.
That's what I'm saying. But
the exact same thing is the monstrous idea monologue that Riley has.
100%.
Yeah.
And in this movie, let's bring it back to Dr. Sleep because I keep forgetting to talk about Dr. Sleep.
Well, now let's just jump into Dr. Sleep.
When he's talking and he's like, I got this chip for my dad.
Yeah. Oh my God, that monologue is so good because it's this is the thing that horror can tackle so well. Not saying other things don't, but horror tackles how complicated that relationship for that boy must have been. If Shelley Duvall, what's the character's name?
Wendy.
If Wendy was like, I hate Jack forever, I'd understand. But for this kid who saw his dad but knew his dad in all these different ways, it's like the idea of that, right? I mean, he says it in the thing. He's like, that's how I got to know my dad as an alcoholic because that's what he was. And now I'm feeling like I get to know him in a different way. This is for you. His dad lost his mind and tried to kill him.
Yeah. In part because he was tanked by his own alcoholism.
Yeah. If The Shining is about alcoholism, Dr. Sleep really is about sobriety.
100%.
And like Shane, I was talking to Shane about us doing this episode a little bit, and he was like, oh, one of the things I didn't love, and look, there's things I don't love about Dr. Sleep. We'll talk about those briefly. We try to be very positive and supportive.
I like the movies.
That's literally, we should get stickers made that just say I like the movies.
Can that be pod merch?
Yeah, pod merch.
After this guy saw the nice guys in theaters.
This guy saw the nice guys
in
in
theaters.
theaters.
And then crew shirt for What Is Us. And then the third piece of merch is I want mugs and stickers that say I like the movies.
I like the movies with the guy with me shrugging like this.
I like the movies.
Anyway, it's this is about sobriety, and Shane kind of mentioned, he's like, oh, it's like an 8-year time skip with all this character development that goes on, and I'm like, I understand that, but to me, this is not a movie about somebody getting sober.
No.
This is a movie about the challenges of staying sober.
Yeah.
Right? He has to struggle with all these things. He has to sit there and have a drink put in front of him and see horrible things and have to make the decision.
After his friend kills himself and he sits there and he almost takes a sip and he throws it on the ground. Like, that was one of the most emotional parts of this movie for me on this rewatch, was I was like, oh. You feel that struggle with him hard. It's
so many moments. I love Billy as a character. That's, to me,
one of the best.
Let's just get through the issues I have with this movie. I don't like that Billy dies.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's in the book, maybe.
I have no idea.
But I don't. I understand the need to raise the stakes and isolate him. I don't actually think he dies in the books. Tell us in the comments if Billy dies.
Yeah, please let us know, because I only know a couple things about Dr. Sleep.
I love that actor. I love him so much. He's underutilized, and he's so good in this movie. But it's the moment when he's like, now for the most important, Bruce Greenwood's character was, now for the most important person in the room, anybody got a week, 24 hours, and he raised his hand, and Billy just starts clapping for him, is trying to be he's just this supportive, wonderful guy who sees past the damage and the broken and pays for his first. It's all of the writing there is so good. I don't know. It breaks my heart that they had to kill him off, because I think he's a really good character.
Oh yeah, his presence is sorely missed in the rest of the movie.
Yeah, but it's to me, it's a movie about that. It's a movie about the struggles of staying sober in the face of adversity, which is substance abuse terrifies me.
Oh yeah.
I've always been that way. I've always had a very big fear of because I have an addictive personality about completely random things. I never know when I'm going to be I am so hooked on this thing I cannot stop. Verbal tics, food.
I was so scared you were about to do Gilda Radner.
Gilda Radner. I cannot stop. Saturday night ruined me. Anyway, it's just random things where I get very addicted to things, video games, movie, whatever it is. You know what I mean? So I have various things where I just hyper fixate on them, and I'm terrified of substance abuse. So watching something like this is really interesting to me, because they do not make Dan look good, at all.
No, him stealing money back from her and then leaving the kid, and
not good. Well, then
wait a minute.
What?
Is she the ghost he sees?
When?
In the bed?
Yes, that's her, baby.
I never realized that.
Well, it's really overt, because she says
I know, and now I'm because now I'm just, I feel really dumb right now.
I don't want to clown on you too bad, but that's not even subtext.
That's just
the plot of the movie.
Forgot. I was like, who's this kid? Who's this baby in this?
Yeah,
mom?
It's the one he abandoned and they died. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That is not good.
Well, no.
That is really bad. I just realized that.
Yeah.
Wow. It's really embarrassing for me, honestly. I was literally sitting around I would love to ask Mike Flanagan, what's going on with that? I'm like, no, Breck.
It's the movie.
It's the movie.
Well, you heard it here first, folks.
So is she fully already dead in that scene?
Well, the kid's dead too.
No, I mean when he leaves her in the morning.
Probably.
That is not good.
No, it's terrible.
It's really sad. When she's like, oh, they were used to hearing him cry, so no one came and checked on us.
Yeah, you mean one of the most tragic things I've ever heard? Yeah.
I have to take a walk.
Yeah, I'll see you later.
That was a really...
I'll play both parts. It's fine. Just hand me
you
your mic.
You guys are... Yeah, you're really witnessing me getting really sad on camera right now.
Anyway, but Dr. Sleep, the we talked about a bit, the stuff I don't like. I don't like that Billy dies. I think that's a rough choice that doesn't quite pan out, because you already established the stakes by having Abra's dad die,
which doesn't happen in the book. I'm fairly certain.
I actually think I heard that they're both at the climax, but not part of it. They're just present.
Which in the climax is entirely different for reasons we're about to get into. But
well, yeah, some of the stuff I don't like is some of the the fan servicey stuff where specifically when Rebecca Ferguson walks around and looks at the blood coming out of the elevator, serves no narrative purpose. It doesn't further her character in any way. She never brings it up again. There's just a scene where she walks around a corner and sees that. Doesn't make any sense. And the other one is I used to think it was a pretty cool idea, but the sequence when they're in the maze amounts to literally nothing and means nothing for the characters.
Yeah. Other than establishing that like they're in Danny's mind.
The only thing
hers.
It does is like add an attempt and a fail to maybe make it feel like they tried more stuff, but it doesn't work for me. I don't like it. Anyway, that's kind of really it for me. It's like the only things that I just harp on is it's got a little too much like fan service stuff, which I to my understanding is it wasn't Flanagan who wanted to do that. It was the studio. Who, after it tested so well with that kind of shit, it became that. But that's kind of it. I really dig this movie. It's not like one of my favorite movies by any means, but it's a movie that I find very emotional and interesting.
Agree.
Why does Mike Flanagan like degloving scenes?
I don't know, but he needs to stop.
No, like I think he needs to take it further. Degloving a whole arm.
Oh,
just keep moving up.
Oh nope, I need
the arm. What's wrong? You don't want him. You don't want to see a full.
I don't even want to think about it.
You don't want to see a decoding where it's the whole body but in one piece?
Don't say it like that.
What about a depantsing where he takes off all the skin on the legs, waist down? Is that fun? Why? I'm just saying.
I haven't even seen Gerald's Game. That's the only
thing.
Good
luck. The Moon Man will get you.
Yeah. He says it every time we talk about it, and I still don't know who that man is.
I don't like the Moon Man. He scares me. Anyway, so yeah, why does he like degloving scenes? Genuine question. He's done it twice.
Because it makes you feel not good because you were just describing it.
I guess I should actually. Why does Stephen King like degloving scenes?
I mean, does she deglove herself in the book? Do we know?
I don't know, but if it happens...
Chat, let us know.
I have to imagine
I'm sure
that's an
she degloves herself in the Gerald's Game novella because, like, why you would have... I mean, I would assume, but...
Now, look...
It's because it makes your body feel like... I literally just did, like, a full body spasm thinking about it.
It's terrible.
There's not a whole lot of things that make me, like, do that, and it's mostly just eyeball trauma and people talking about degloving.
You don't like eyeball trauma?
No.
You don't like seeing the stalk of an eyeball?
Please.
No, so that Mike Flanagan was put in an interesting position here where he could either just adapt the book, but then it would kind of have to be an adaptation of the Shining book and not the movie, and then you're just in for a nightmare.
He just makes a sequel to the Shining miniseries that no one watched.
No, he briefly considered that.
Man.
He really likes that. He says it's really good. I haven't seen the miniseries. I really want to.
No, I would love to.
But he says that was on the table. He again went, it's just too confusing. But he went, if I can marry these two things and get Stephen King's blessing, who famously fucking hated The Shining and has warmed up on it since Dr. Sleep. If he could marry these two things and then fulfill the ending of The Shining, which is the Overlook Hotel burns down, do that in this one.
I think he's married them quite perfectly as anyone could.
I do too. Like, look, it is definitely a sequel to the Shining movie. It has all the iconography, all those things, but emotionally speaking, it feels like a sequel to the book.
100%.
Like in a really interesting way that's like an impossibility. Like I don't exactly know how you do that.
It was something that I noticed yesterday, but I kept inside because I wanted to talk about it on the podcast. The ending of The Shining features this very emotional moment of Jack briefly like coming to and him being like, Danny, I love you. Please run away from me now. Like, I love you. I'm so proud of you. You're my son forever. Please run away from me now. And then the hotel takes back over. And I noticed that they do that with Danny and Abra in this movie, which I hadn't clicked before because I hadn't read The Shining before, is Danny gets this beautiful moment of being like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm proud of you. Like, run away from me now.
Well, and then, I mean, the moment with his mom and his eyes, which is an addition, I believe, the scene when he changes his eye color to be blue, like Ewan McGregor's. The kid, young Danny does, and then at the end when it like pans over and it's his mom pans over to kid, his eyes are his own color.
Yeah,
and she's looking at him as he is, accepting his shine and everything. Loved that. Well, okay, and then we got to talk about the villains. Some of the best Stephen King villains ever.
Oh, 100%. Some of the most evil, like clapping with glee when they die villains ever.
And the True Knot is such a fascinating idea. And Stephen's not the first time Stephen King has done this. Literally, If It Bleeds, The Outsider. They deal with like a psychic vampire kind of thing where it's like they feed on fear and pain and trauma. That's what they are. They're vampires.
And it's
the True Knot are a form of a vampire.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And they're very different from in the book, is my understanding. But I like how they change them. They make them kind of rock and roll in this. They're cool,
very like
yeah. Their clothes like
free love, peace for all.
And their clothes are all different. And some pieces are modern, some pieces are vintage. It's like the styling and the design for all that.
They feel like they're people who've been alive a really long time.
Yeah.
And have collected the things that they like from every era they lived.
Yes, exactly. Well, and that's the design stuff that went into it. It's great. I think the True
production design.
Yeah, the True Knot they're just a fascinating idea of like people who prey on children, and I love that the second they fight somebody who can fight back, an adult, they lose. Like
they're like, you're not like, just laying down.
Yeah, whoa, you're unaffected by my power.
It's
crap.
like, oh wow, so you're a loser.
Yeah,
you're a loser who picks on children.
Well, and I said this the moment. It's so good. It's part of his like he never a king. Part of the thing that I love about him, it never feels like he is wrangling his characters. It's like he created a situation not where a character would not wear a seatbelt because the plot demanded it, but he created a situation where he knew a character wasn't wearing a seatbelt and knew a character was smart enough to go, here's what I have to do to exploit that weakness.
Yes.
It's like you think it's this reverse lazy version, and he does it in the really very clearly does it in the very well thought out, methodical. Like he didn't write that scene knowing that's what's going to happen. He went, okay, this is how they could beat them because this character would be like this. Great writing. Also, the Crow is so cool.
He's cool. It's
cool
really
as
unfortunate.
Hell. Unfortunately, recognizes game. He's great.
He's really cool. Especially because he seems to be the only True Knot member who kind of like is vaguely like, are we doing the right thing?
Yeah, he's like, maybe we shouldn't keep this kid. That would be bad.
Maybe we like shouldn't milk this child for her shine until she's dry and then kill her.
Yeah, terrible.
And then Rose the Hat's like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
She's like, you're being weird.
Rebecca Ferguson.
What
more can we say?
She needs to be in another Flanagan project where she doesn't have to play a villain.
She needs to be in every movie that I see ever.
That's true.
And she largely is, which is crazy.
Yeah, Dune, Mission Impossible.
Literally Dune, Mission Impossible, like this. I was like, man.
Yeah.
And if Rebecca Ferguson was like, hey, come hang out with me, I'd be like, okay, I'm coming. Like,
coolest person of all time.
Too bad she sucks in this movie. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I need her. I need her in a Flanagan thing where she gets to be like someone.
She sucks, but she's great. You know what I mean?
Oh, she's like one of the best performances in it.
Yeah, well, I think Ewan McGregor is so good in this movie.
He's amazing.
He always feels like he's one pop of the bottle away from a full breakdown the 100%. Entire time, even when he's doing well. It's so good.
100%.
Ewan McGregor is a great actor, but this is where he really gets to shine. And then and then the podcast
and it just ends. No, and I saw something that I really liked in Sean Fennessy's review of this, and his specifically was about the director's cut, where he was like, I love when a kind of overqualified dramatic actor is like, time to shine in my horror movie.
Yeah.
Because it brings, it's the amount of seriousness that I think all horror movies should be taken with. Like, the amount, like, Ewan McGregor and Rebecca Ferguson are both like, respected actors,
prestige actors,
you know, and they're like, and it's time to clown in this movie, and it's not a clowny movie, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I feel like there's a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but I feel like there are probably actors who are like, it's a horror movie, whatever. Like,
I think that's dying, but you're right.
Which is so silly because so many celebrities have gotten their start in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, and famously, like we were all like
Maxine Minks. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Loved her in The Farmer's Daughters.
Oh my God. You like her early work? Is that what?
Yeah. But like, famously, we were all like, we need to storm the Academy for not like nominating Toni Collette for Hereditary. Like, so it's just really refreshing, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Of just like two people who were like, and I'm going to put my entire butt into this role right now, and you cannot stop me.
It's true.
Which is just great.
And like, we can't stop them.
And it's the reasons, like one of the main reasons we all like Stephen King novels is that they have such great villains. Like no one's sitting around. No offense to James Caan. No offense to the great late James Caan. No one's talking about his performance in Misery, even though it's phenomenal, because Annie Wilkes is there, because Kathy Bates is serving
in her first film role,
which is so annoying. She was a very well-respected stage actress before that, but that was her first film.
It wasn't her first time acting. It was her first time on a movie set.
But like against a huge, maybe not huge at the time, but he was a very well-respected. But the villain in a Stephen King novel, I think, is kind of this like I feel like there are so many people who are like, oh man, I would love to be like. You know what I mean? Like, I think Bill Skarsgård was probably like, hell yes, I want to be Pennywise.
Well, yeah, but that Pennywise is Pennywise. He's one of the horror icons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Doctor. Is there other stuff we want to cover? I know we talked about a little bit. We wanted to talk about. This movie bombed at the box office, and I think that's unfair.
I was gonna ask you. I was like,
terrible.
So,
it did incredibly bad. And Sorry, it Mike. Got a bunch of.
I did my part,
Flanagan
Mike.
projects at Warner. Yeah, I did my part too. I saw it in theaters, and I really liked it. I said it was very good. Anyway, the section where there's the shootout.
Oh yeah.
Everyone talks about not liking it because it turns into an action thriller for no reason. I disagree. It's barely even shot like an action sequence.
It's very straightforward. There's not a whole lot of like.
Yeah. There's no crazy action filmmaking. Like one or two shots maybe, but I don't know. I like that sequence. It's that idea that the second they fight somebody who can fight back, they lose.
Which it also again establishes the stakes of like you've felt up to that point. You're like, oh my God, these things are like unstoppable. Like they killed that poor kid, which is the most upsetting scene in the entire movie still to me.
And it's such a it's such a Stephen King way to send off a bunch of villains where it's like, it feels kind of innocuous. Like think of 2017. They bully him to death.
Literally.
That's all they do.
Like, you're dumb and you're stupid and I hate you. It's like and you're ugly.
Yeah, there's no cosmic ritual of chud or whatever it is to make it all happen. No, they just bully him to death. It's great. It's a very weird left turn thing for Stephen King, but he does it amazingly. I really like it.
Agree. Like
Holly or If It Bleeds is the same thing where it's like they beat the villain by pushing him down an elevator shaft. Like that's how they beat the bad guy. It's so random and perfect, but I love it.
And it establishes, because I think there were also moments where I was like, what are these things? What are you? Why are you eating food? I thought you ate the screams of children.
That doesn't mean they can't enjoy food.
I know. It's very confusing.
No, they like food.
You know,
you wouldn't have a hamburger if you could.
I mean, you're right.
That's all I'm saying.
Get me a smash burger with some animal sauce, baby. I'm in there.
There you go.
That's the appetizer to the children's screams.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a baseball boy.
Oh, I was going to talk about something else, but now we got to talk about baseball boy.
No, talk about that other thing. I don't want to talk about baseball boy.
We do not want to talk about that. It made us sad. We recently watched we've been really on a horror documentary series things kick on Shudder, and we just shout out Shudder. Come on the pod.
Sponsored by Shudder. Shudder.
Please. But we just watched like 100 greatest scariest moments in horror movies. Yeah. Like I forget the exact title. Just look up 101 on Shudder, whatever. But that's one of the moments they mention in it, which is so funny because I think Kate Siegel's like, this movie's really good. We're like, Kate, why weren't you in it?
Yeah, we're like, Kate, I feel like you might have a bias. You're right, but your opinion is a little biased.
But they were like, yeah, this is the scariest moment in this movie because it is like
it's the most gruesome. They apparently edited it down quite a bit.
Yeah, tell your little story about.
Oh, Mike Flanagan just was working on I think Bly Manor or something, and he couldn't sleep at night because he was like, I have to tell him. They had locked the movie, like locked it. He's like, I can't do it. I can't put that. I have to call him. And they called him and were like, please, you have to cut this out. We will pay for it. And he was like, good, fly it out to me. So they literally flew out all the drives they needed to him in London where he was filming. And he re-edited that scene and took out a bunch of stuff.
Funny.
So funny that he was sitting there like, I can't do it. And the studio was like, I can't do it either. So let's get it the fuck out.
Which I just realized. So the Turning, that's that movie with Finn Wolfhard.
Sure.
Right, from like 2020.
I believe you completely.
That's from a short story. It's either called The Turning. I think it's called The Turning of the Screw. And that's also what Bly Manor is based on. And I just realized, I put that together and was like, wow, they had like 2 adaptations of a very, not very, but fairly obscure like gothic novella in the same like span of like 2 years.
Well parallel thinking is a real thing.
There you go. The Turning gave us a really great Mitski song, FYI.
There we go.
You know.
That's all that matters.
It is. It was an unreleased song, and she released it in a studio version. Anyways, it's not important. But something I really enjoyed, and I noticed this now, because also since I first saw this movie, I have seen all of Twin Peaks. Not The Return. Don't post spoilers for Twin Peaks The Return. I haven't seen it yet. But the giant from Twin Peaks is Grandpa Flick in this movie, which is very, very fun to me. There's no point to that. I'm like, hey, he's here. I'm like, he's here. Anyways, it is happening again. Spencer, I'll get that in like 2 years when we end up watching Twin Peaks. We got like 20 things to watch before then. But
Bly Manor's one of them.
Bly Manor's one of them.
Anyway, anything else on this? Other like final thoughts, lessons?
Lessons for me, I think as a writer, of in general things, not necessarily as a filmmaker. Really just treating your characters like people and not playthings, I think is a good lesson to take of both Stephen King and Mike Flanagan. Truly, you feel the love, and if not love, empathy, and if not empathy, distaste for every character they write. There is no character they're just like, and they're there. They're both people who there is an insane amount of care put into every single character, and I think that's a phenomenal lesson to have. Of their stories are successful because they cared and because they wanted to see what would happen as much as anyone else did.
Truly.
What are yours?
I did talk about compromise as a filmmaker. You can't always do what you want, whether it be budgetary restrictions, studio notes, actors being actors, writers being writers, whatever it may be. Compromise does not mean you have to phone it in.
Yeah.
Even the stuff in this that I don't love is directed great, played great, has emotion to it. Like, that's the big thing is when you have to compromise, because you'll inevitably have to compromise. Make it your own still. Do everything you can. Don't just go, oh, fuck it, I have to do this, so I'm just going to half-ass it, whatever. The other side of that is Harrison Ford half-assed. This is kind of the bigger reason. Because when Harrison Ford half-assed the voiceover in one of the cuts of Blade Runner, he just did terrible because he's like, so they won't put it in the movie. And then they put it in the movie. Yeah. It's like, so now there's just this weird thing where everyone thinks you don't fucking give a shit if they didn't know the history of that, whatever. Now, that's one of the most highly publicized ones, but whatever. I just think when you have to compromise, make it well worth it. Make it worth your time. Make it worth theirs. Really, like, still put your whole back into it. You know what I mean? Plus ultra that motherfucker.
Plus ultra.
So anyway, that's my lesson. Are you ready for our B segment?
Oh, am I ready?
It's the first time I've ever done a game, so I went simple.
I love it.
I am doing Stephen King trivia.
But I ace this.
Stephen King trivia, everyone. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Alrighty. So I'm
about to lose. I'm being too cocky.
I tried to be a mix of really hard and very easy.
Okay.
So question.
Answer.
What is the name of Stephen King's wife?
Oh, I just saw.
I thought for sure you'd get this in a heartbeat.
Oh my God. I literally know it. Oh no. I literally just saw the book. I literally just saw a book she wrote.
I didn't know she was a writer.
Oh my God. She just wrote. Oh my God. There's like 10 names going through my brain right now.
And which one is it?
It's not any
Starts
of them.
with a T.
This is not good. Okay. Yeah. No, I can't.
Tabitha.
Oh my God. I knew it was Tabitha. Oh.
Next question. Which university did Stephen King attend?
University of Maine?
University of Maine, because we know Stephen King hates everywhere that isn't Maine.
I was like, I'm assuming University of Maine. Yeah. Well, and there's a very fun story about that is the rant.
That he hates every other place that isn't Maine?
Yes. Is that the rant that Bill has in the beginning of it where he's talking about, he's like, can't I just write horror stories and it doesn't have to be anything? It doesn't have to mean anything political or blah, blah, blah. That rant is fully just what happened to Stephen King. And he dropped out of college because he was like, what do you mean I can't write my schlocky horror movies? And not movies, novels.
Books.
So.
Okay, next question. In Stephen King's Pet Sematary, why is cemetery spelled incorrectly?
Because it's the kids. The kids created the cemetery.
That's right. That's a good one. In which Stephen King short story will you find a group of people trapped in a grocery store?
The Mist?
The Mist. That's right. You haven't seen or read The Mist either.
I haven't seen or read The Mist. I've seen Pet Sematary. I've seen the 80s one. Not my favorite, but it has its moments.
I want to see it. What did Annie Wilkes use to hobble Paul Sheldon in Stephen King's novel Misery?
Oh, no. Is it different from the movie?
I cannot tell you that. It's part of the maybe. Is it not? Am I tricking you? Am I not tricking you?
I think you're tricking me, but now I'm scared. Is it not a sledgehammer?
I can't tell you that.
Well, my guess is a sledgehammer.
You are incorrect. You want another guess, or do you want me to tell you?
Oh, let me do one more guess. Is it a regular hammer, not a sledgehammer?
Nope. It's an axe. She cuts his leg off. Yeah. No, I want to read Misery so bad.
That is so much worse than I thought.
Oh, the hobbling terrifies me more because it's a core memory.
The hobbling is like something.
I had a teacher just play that scene for me in middle school, and I was like, I'm a kid.
The hobbling is worse, but the idea of her just going, fuck it, I'm cutting your leg off.
Yeah, wild.
Which is, again, another novel of Stephen King where he's like, and this is how I feel about my alcoholism. I feel like it traps me and I'm scared.
Yeah. As you should be. Okay. Which Stephen King book was originally titled Second Coming?
Second Coming. This could be a lot about people coming back to life. I don't think it's Pet Sematary. But now I'm scared because you already did a Pet Sematary question, but now I'm scared. Second Coming. No, I'm going to say Pet Sematary.
Nope, it is Salem's Lot, his second book, which is a funny meta title.
That's really funny.
Salem's Lot's a better title.
Salem's Lot's 100% a better title.
Yep.
Second Coming makes it sound like it's zombies, and it's not.
Yep.
It's vampires.
Yep. All right. How many of the 7 friends are still alive at the end of Stephen King's It?
5.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 What is the fictional name that some of Stephen King's work has been published under? What's his pen name?
Oh, it's like Richard something. Is the first name Richard?
It is. The first name is Richard.
I don't know the last name.
It starts with a B.
Richard
Bachman.
Bachman.
Bachman. So Bachman,
Okay.
Bachman.
Fascinating.
Which I didn't know that until I was putting this together. I didn't know he had a pen name, and you tell that story, which is funny on this.
Yeah, no, that's the one because he was writing too many short stories in the 80s, and his publisher was like, dude,
right.
I can't sell any of these if you keep writing them.
Let's see if you're a real fan of this movie/book. What type of car is in Stephen King's Christine?
It's I want to say 1957 Plymouth something. Chrysler Cruiser.
Plymouth Fury. Yeah, I'll give it to you. That's a win. Okay.
Did I get the year right?
I don't have the year, but I'm guessing you do.
And it's cherry red, which also makes a cameo in it.
With which singer did King recently co-write a musical called Ghost Brothers of Darkland County?
What?
Yep. No, I didn't know this. Seriously, genuinely, which singer? It's wild.
Is it someone I listen to? Can I get a hint?
You've definitely heard. You know who this is. It's like a very famous older musician. Not old, but older.
I'm going to say Bruce Springsteen.
Nope, but that would be awesome and perfect.
I mean,
it's John Mellencamp. Wow. Which also, doesn't it make sense, though?
That makes sense. I'm not a huge Mellencamp head.
But still, but you know Mellencamp.
I know.
What was that one more time?
I can't do it.
Sorry, one more time.
No,
Just
no,
please,
I'm scared.
Please, I hit the audio recorder wrong. I need you to one more time.
Jack and Diane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What breed of dog is Stephen King's Cujo?
He's a Saint Bernard.
He is a Saint Bernard. In Stephen King's The Green Mile, what does John Coffey get to do as his last wish? You have not seen or read this.
I've neither seen nor read The Green Mile, and he's the one who's getting put to death in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, is it not that he's like, can you keep the lights on?
Nope. It's watch a movie. He gets to watch a movie, which is so sad.
Stephen.
How many Stephen King books have been published?
Oh, good God Almighty! Does that include short story collections?
I don't know. Collections, let's just say yes, because it's.
I'm
shocking.
gonna go 47.
65.
Oh wow, I undershot.
Crazy, right?
I was trying to picture like the page at the front of every like Stephen King book where it's like, here's everything he's published, and you're like, this is too much.
It's so many books. What is Stephen King's biggest selling book? Now, there's some debate on this. This is according to a specific website. I can't remember which one.
Out of every book he's ever written, it's sold the most copies.
Yep. It's super the one you're thinking.
It?
No, sorry.
Shining.
It's The Shining. Yeah.
Okay. That was going to be, I was like, I almost feel like more people would read it or Carrie.
I am shocked it's not it, in all honesty, just because of how legendary it is. But I think that's just
we have
a
a lot more adaptations of it than we do of pretty much any other Stephen King thing, no?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, there's two and two. The Shining had a miniseries that he wrote.
Oh, that's a good point.
Anyway, that's
and
Stephen,
I've been there.
That's Stephen King trivia, everyone. Breck, what is your prize? This Jack Torrance Funko Pop that is going to stay at my house because it's mine.
Look at him.
It says Red Rum.
He looks evil in there.
He is evil.
Oh my God, there's blood splatter.
Yeah,
I never noticed that.
It says Red Rum.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I don't really collect Funko Pops that much, but I have socially acquired quite a few, and that's one of my favorites.
You socially do Funko Pops?
Well, that's the thing.
Like you're a social smoker?
I'm with people, and they're like, oh, I love Funko Pop. And I'm like, yeah, this one's fun, and I'll buy it.
He says that every time we're at the comic store, he's like, look at the Funko Pops.
No, I don't. Stop telling my audience lies.
How many did I get right? Well, how many did I get?
I didn't keep count. I'll know after.
Okay.
I'm not going to put a flashing number up. You audience count. How many did Breck get right down in the comments?
Don't worry, I'll comment.
This is how you boost engagement.
Engagement boosting.
Anyway, now recommendations. You said you had quite a few things to recommend.
I have quite a
so excited
few. A lot of which you've recommended on the pod in the last couple weeks, just because we've been doing 31 for 31 this year. So very, very exciting on that. What I actually wanted to recommend first was a book series, which feels pretty cogent. Spencer knows exactly what I'm about to say. It is the Indian Lake trilogy by Stephen Graham Jones.
Yep.
Kind of, I don't want to say has changed my life. It's changed my life a little bit in terms of how I think about movies, how I think about horror movies specifically, their relationship to each other. The brief synopsis is that it starts with this book called My Heart is a Chainsaw, which is about this teenage girl in this fictional place called Proof Rock, Idaho, which is around Indian Lake, which is the titular Indian Lake trilogy. And she becomes convinced that, the main character Jade becomes convinced that there's a slasher happening in her town, and that it is her duty to be like, she calls herself the Randy, to like educate everyone, and especially to find this new girl in town who she's decided is the final girl and educate her. And every single book never goes the way that I expected it's going to. And it happens. The ending of the entire trilogy made me feel violently emotional in a way. Like it's greatly changed my life. So I would love to highly recommend that. It's just a trilogy. You don't have to sit down and read like a 6 novel series. But yeah, the last installment just came out, I think last year. I want to say this time last year or maybe earlier this year, but changed my life really hard. I've been bugging Spencer to read it, even though his watch pile and his read pile are huge. Cause I'm like, wait, but guys, movie wise, we just saw, what did we just see? It was just at the top of my brain.
Elm Street,
Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
That movie bangs.
Dude, every single credit that popped up on the screen, I was like, oh my God, am I in heaven? I'm like, what do you mean that this also has Heather Langenkamp back in it? It's got young Patty Arquette. It's got Lawrence Fishburne, except he's credited as Larry Fishburne. Just love that. It's got an Angelo Badalamenti score. Again, shout out Twin Peaks. Angelo Badalamenti is a long time. He passed away a couple years ago. Very sad. But he was a big Lynch collaborator, and I'm like, wow, Angelo, they got you on the track in here.
I am going to recommend Absolute Batman by Scott Snyder.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit, it's so good. It's a fresh take on Batman. It's a whole fresh universe. So if you like Wonder Woman, if you like Batman, they've announced a Flash. I think they announced a Martian Manhunter. Quite a few more will be coming. They're apparently all really quite good, but I'm only reading Absolute Batman at the moment. But the premise of it is, what if Bruce was never, ever wealthy? Like, not like he was wealthy, unless, what if he was just never wealthy? It's one of the freshest takes on Batman. People were clowning on the symbol being, like, weird and stuff. It turns into a battle axe and he cuts off a dude's arm with it.
Okay, sorry,
it's
that's awesome.
Fantastic.
Am I supposed to like not like that?
It's amazing. Absolute Batman is so good. The freshest take on Batman we've had in a long time. And Scott Snyder doesn't ever miss with Batman, apparently. He's very good at writing him. Lightning sometimes does strike 3 times. Anyway, so that's that one. I just watched... today, as of recording this, I watched Jason Lives, and finally a Friday the 13th movie that is just batshit crazy.
Oh yeah,
so excited about that. That made me very happy. I'm gonna recommend 2 places. Mm-hmm. Sip City. If you're in Plano, Texas, and you like soda, it's a dirty soda place. It's just a fancy soda place. Really like it. That's where I'm going after this shit. And then I'm also going to recommend Madness Comics, since you talked about comic books.
Best friend in the entire world,
I walk
Madness
in there
Comics.
and they go, oh, what's up, Spencer? And I'm like...
I can't tell you. The first time that happened, he texted me. He was like, babe, they know me in here now. It's an exciting feeling.
Best moment of my life. Anyway, so that kind of stuff.
Wait.
What's up?
Wait, do you have more?
No, go for it.
Oh, I was realizing I should recommend my favorite Stephen King things.
Okay.
I already talked about it, but It 1986 is like one of the best books ever. I think it's phenomenal in every single way, and I'm desperate for us to do an It podcast so bad, so I can please come guest and talk about how much I love It 1986 for like 5 hours. But in that vein, I really recommend, it's on Max right now. Sorry, HBO Max. I don't want to call it Max. It 1990, which is both, we say miniseries, that and Salem's Lot are both TV movies, quote unquote, where they're just like 2 hour and a half, 90-minute movies back to back. it is genuinely, there are so many things in it that I think about all the time. Tim Curry, Pennywise. Nobody's doing it like him, you know, and which is not shading Bill Skarsgård in any way, because I think his Pennywise is phenomenal too. But yeah, It 1990, The Shining 1980, not to be blasphemous. Yeah. And of course, Carrie, Brian De Palma's Carrie. Don't watch the 2013 one.
You got so much stuff to watch now. You got
so
a lot
much
of
stuff.
things. If you don't love Dr. Sleep, give it a second chance. It's a very emotional movie. It's very good.
I just liked it, and now I'm like, that was really good, and I really enjoyed it.
Cut, give it another chance. Gives it more room to breathe. Gives it some more emotion. Lets you know the characters a little bit better.
I'm sure we'll rewatch it with director's commentary too.
That would be great. You have all these things to watch, lots of stuff to read, places to visit. So yeah, you should go do those things. Or I don't know. Live your life.